Hello everyone and welcome to another card tutorial. This is Jama Malmi and today I'm sharing 3 card ideas using leftover scraps of paper. This is for the Wild Card Week of the Love Your Stash Challenge with the Creative Design Team, where all February long we're bringing you inspiration to use some of your older products. That was a look at what we're making today, so let's jump into it. For this first card, I've cut my scraps into different width strips to create a fun background. I was actually inspired by the original card from the workshop for the Feels Like Home kit, and I'm making it a little easier on myself by using some typing paper cut to the size that I want these borders to create sort of a panel on my card front. And that way I don't have to line them up perfectly on the card base itself. I can line them up on here and then cut them to size and know that they are lined up perfectly. The first couple cards I made, I did not do this, and let me tell you, this makes it so much easier. So I lined up all of the strips in an order that I liked based on color and width, and I am going to glue them all down. This is the last piece that I'm putting down because I wanted it to overlap that sort of wood grain pattern so that the wood grain was not the same width as the charcoal piece next to it. So now we've got varying widths and colors, and I'm going to glue this down to my card front. This is quite simple to pull together, and this is such a good use for all of those random scraps that you have. I am using the Happiness Lives Here card making stamps and thin cuts. I thought the look of this stamp worked nicely with the papers, and I'm really loving that even though I'm diving into my stash and using older products, that they really mix well with my newer products that I want to play with as well. So I'm going to pop this up on some foam to give it a little dimension, and I'm also going to add some silver embellishing thread looped behind it as well, just to add a little extra texture and interest. And I'm just sticking it right to those foam pieces on the back before I put it down. A lot of times when I add embellishing thread, it's sort of an afterthought, and I have to kind of stick it in underneath, so it works out well when you think of it before you actually put the sentiment down. I'm adding some shimmer brush to add a little bit of shine here, and then I'm also going to add a few little pieces of the flower confetti. Some of these are iridescent and some of them are not, and so it just adds a nice little shine. I'm adding just a tiny little dot of Tombow glue to hold each one down, and I'm using this jewel picker, which is real handy to set them in place. And there's a look at the finished card, and this is the one that I made as my sample beforehand off camera. Now we're moving on to card number 2. This was inspired by the one you see here by Alice Bunce. I just really loved this whole card that she made, and so I decided to put my spin on it with the papers that I had out. And I just love that it's a great use of scraps, and you can also fit a lot of different patterns from different paper packs in there. So it's just a really great versatile card sketch. So I'm pulling in all of these different sizes of scraps here, and then I'm also going to pull in some cardstock because I thought there was too much pattern going on. And by the way, that peach one on top is from one of the mix-ins, so it's not actually from the paper pack. I embossed the cardstock pieces, and then that was a little file that I borrowed from a friend. I was actually at a retreat and didn't have my file with me, so I sanded down the embossing so you could see the white core. And then here on this charcoal piece, I wanted to add a little bit of stamping, so I pulled out the February stamp of the month, Doodled Borders, and there was this little kind of polka dot stamp, and I thought that would be perfect to add just a little bit of interest to that piece. And I'm going to kind of line them all up how I like them, and then we're going to fishtail the edges, or the ends of them, like so. So I did all my scraps, most of them skinnier than Alice did because my pieces were skinnier. So this really works with a variety of scraps that you might have. Now here I thought I was being so smart by putting this washi tape down to keep everything in place. And, you know, it really would have worked well if I hadn't done the dry embossing on the cardstock. And so you're going to see where I goofed here, but don't worry, I'm going to fix it. There's always a fix to everything. So it was really great how that washi tape kind of kept everything in place. I could glue it down. I could even slice off the top so they're even, but the washi tape was still a little bit too strong for those pieces that were embossed and kind of sanded down, and it peeled them off. So I replaced the ones that got ruined with just another piece, and I put it right on top, and you never know. So it really turned out fine in the end. So don't worry if you make mistakes like that. There's always a fix for everything. You can embellish over it or just replace it. Don't worry, it's just paper. So I'm going to hide all the seams with that zip strip there, and we're not going to worry about the seam because it's going to get covered up. Now I'm using the letter tiles stamp and die set here to create my sentiment to say hello. And I cut it out of the Woodgrain pattern that comes with the Feels Like Home collection rather than stamping the Woodgrain stamp on it. But if you don't have a Woodgrain pattern, the Woodgrain stamp is a perfect solution, and I love that it comes with that to create these Scrabble looking little letters. So we're going to line those up, and I cut an extra one just in case but didn't need it. Line those up there, and I just think that's so cute, but wanted to overlap the zip strip a little bit. And then we are going to move on to our embellishing. So I pulled out these wood shapes. This also goes with the Happiness Lives Here collection, and it's just really great flower shapes. I'm going to fuss with a bunch of different shapes here. I also ended up pulling out my wooden heart shapes and pulled some of those in as well. And then I have the Happiness Lives Here stickers. And even though this isn't from the same collection, they share some of the same colors, and I thought that some of these stickers would work well. So I'm gonna use one of the flower stickers to kind of bridge between the leaf and the flower that I used to kind of cover that little seam up. I didn't like it showing, and so after I finish fussing, we'll cover that little seam up right there with a little flower, and it ends up working out perfectly. So I'm going to put each of these little tiles up on some foam. I used the thin 3D foam tape, so it's not real high. It's just got a little bit of dimension. Put all those down, and then I glued the wood pieces down with my Tombow multi-glue in the green bottle. I really love the glue in the green bottle because it's sort of a little bit tacky and stretchy. I don't really know how else to explain it, but it does hold these wood pieces down well. I enjoy it. The wood pieces are pretty thick, so they do add quite a bit of dimension to your card. So if you're going to send it in the mail, you might want to add a little protection to it, or just give a card like this to somebody by hand. I'm adding gold shimmer brush here to the hearts and a few little splatters, and there's the finished card. Now on to our last card. I wanted to use this little gnome because I've been super into him. There are several gnome sets available from Close to My Heart now. This is the original one that they came out with last year, and I just love it, and I just keep using this one because I love the gnomes that it comes with. I'm coloring it with some colors that coordinate with the ones that I have out. This is the Coral blend, and then I also used dull green on the leaves, pale yellow or light yellow, something like that, on the flowers, and I'll list the colors that I used down in the description below if you're interested. I've sped this up quite a bit because I'm not the best colorer, how do you say that? I don't know. But I wanted to show that you don't have to be good at coloring to use these markers. I'm really loving the tri-blend markers because they come with a dark, medium, and light version of the same color in one pen, and it really takes the guesswork out of what colors to choose, and I just really love it. Here's a good tip. I love using the colorless blender to help blend on the beard. And so I'm going to go back to that in a minute after I use this gray on the pants. I did it just around the edge of his beard. And now I've got the fair skin blend. I'm going to do the little nose and ears and a little bit of a hand that's showing. Go around the beard with that as well. And then here's the colorless blender. I'm blending it out of the beard because I want just a little itty bitty shadow. I'm adding a little more gray here. I'm going to go back over it with the colorless blender. And it acts sort of like an eraser in a sense, but it just blends it and makes it really, really soft. So you just have a very little hint of gray in the beard, just kind of as a shadow. I didn't have my true black marker with me at this retreat, so I used my journal pen to color his shoes and belt, and that worked perfectly. I typically use the true black marker. And then I used one of the gold metallic Spectrum Noir markers for the belt buckle, and I thought that looked cute. So now I'm going to assemble this card, and this one was inspired by Angie Black, and you can see her card up above. I really liked the blue in her card, so I had pulled some of the blue out for my card, but ended up not using it and sticking to my original color palette that I had for the other cards. Not that they needed to all coordinate, but that's just what I decided to go with. You know, I think it's because of the black details in the gnome, the shoes and the belt. I didn't like it with the dark blue. It was kind of like a navy blue and sort of clashed with that. So that's why I ended up taking the blue out. I'm going to line up these little scraps that I cut and put that gnome there front and center. Needed a little bit of extra pop, so I added the black to the background. And now I'm deciding on my sentiment. I pulled out an old stamp set, Blossom something. I'll put that in the description below as well. And these beautiful script sentiments, I wanted them to be placed exactly where I had lined them up, so I used my little mini Misty to do that. And then I decided I wanted that gnome to pop even more and added a black little doily. So I doubled up the doilies, the peach on black, and kind of staggered them and thought that looked nice. Then I layered the stitch circle die on top of that, popped the gnome up on some 3D foam to give him more dimension, and that pretty much completes the card. I'm going to put this all together, I'm going to glue it all down, and of course add a little bit of shimmer. I added shimmer just a little bit on his beard and the flowers, and then added some sparkle with some little sequins. I like to glue these down with that same Tombow glue, and here is the finished card. Here's another look at all the cards we created today. Here's card number 1, and then the original card that I did as a sample, and then card number 2, which was inspired by Alice Bunce. Love those wood embellishments. And then card number 3, which was inspired by Angie Black. Here are close-ups of each of the cards. This one you can see the texture a lot better and some of that sparkle. And here is that cute little gnome. I hope you'll check out the rest of the Creative Design Team's projects. I'm linking all of their channels below so you can check them out. We've been having lots of fun creating from our stash. And this week is Wildcard, so you can use anything from your stash, and we hope you'll play along. I've listed a couple more videos that I thought you might enjoy. And if you enjoyed this video, I hope you'll subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell to be sure you don't miss any upcoming videos. Check out ERIN's video tomorrow, and I hope you have a wonderful day.